Osanals? You ready for a great day? I'm looking at your faces and I can tell that you're ready to greet me. Here we go. Let's hear it. Outstanding. Hoop, hoop, hoop. It's good to see you guys. And today we are going to jump into something really important. It's a very important topic. Okay. We are on differentiating weather and climate. And we will differentiate weather and climate, and the student is expected to differentiate between weather and climate. Several important concepts are embedded within this TEAC objective. Each concept is presented on its own page, and we'll talk about uh, how it's all set up and what the difference is between weather and climate and everything. And at the end of all of this, you should be able to, if I gave you a situation, you can listen to the situation, listen to the information you get, and tell me whether it's a weather situation or a climate situation. Let's go ahead and move forward. All right, it starts with a corny joke. Why did the woman go outdoors with her purse open? Because she expected some change in the weather. Get it? Change in the weather. Okay, whatever. Wasn't funny. All right, another dumb joke. What is the difference between weather and climate? This is stupid, but it's kind of funny. But you can't weather a tree, but you can climb it. Knee slapper. Here we go. Let's go forward. Weather versus climate. Climate refers to the average weather conditions in a certain place over many years. For example, the climate in Minnesota is cold and snowy in the winter, and the climate in Honolulu, Hawaii is warm and humid all year long. Climate affects a number of environmental factors within the region, including the type and growth of the vegetation and wildlife. And you can see that, like the jungle plants grow every day, all day, and they just growing all crazy. It's like a jungle sometimes. But if you go toward the North Pole, you will find that the plants don't grow as fast, and the wildlife, they all have fur and they all have a lot of stuff to deal with the colder climate up in the North Pole. Okay, let's go. Weather describes the short-term state of our atmosphere. This may include information about the air temperature, particip- precipitation, and air pressure and cloud cover. Our local weather changes daily due to the movement of air in our atmosphere. Okay. Now, climate, it mostly is dependent upon latitude. You probably can remember back when we did that uh, social studies exercise on latitude and longitude. You should be familiar with this particular concept. That was that brain pop on latitude last week, and you should kind of have a concept of what the latitude and longitude is. We'll start with the equator, and it'll just keep going up and up and up until it's at 90, which is the top of the Earth and North Pole. Okay. Now, all of these little zones that they have represent a different climate. Okay, represent a different climate zone. Okay, it's based on the angular distance north and south from the equator measured along the meridian of that particular point. Okay, so climate depends on oceans and bodies of water. Really, it really does. The sea is our source of water, and water is our source of weather. Weather. Okay. That water cycle really drives our weather. Okay, the ocean plays a crucial role in determining climate because its ability to absorb, store, and transport heat from the sun. Ocean water also affects atmospheric temperatures and circulation around the world. Furthermore, seawater is the source of most precipitation. Okay, seawater, most of the earth is made out of salt water. Okay, or is covered in salt water. It's not made out of, it's covered in salt water. All right. And climate depends on mountains, blocking bath. Let's follow this with a mouse. We would, the ocean sea breeze will come in and then it'll force its way up the hill. And what will happen is as it goes up, just like condensation, as this air is forced up the hill, it is warm and it's moist because it comes from the sea. As it gets pushed up the hill, it begins to condense and condensation happens. And that's where it'll feed the snow covered mountain, sometimes precipitation of snow on the mountain. And it also would force all of that moisture on this side of the mountain. Okay. The other side of the mountain, when the air comes back down, has usually been filtered and dried out. So 9 times out of 10, you're next to a mountain range. One side is pretty fertile and warm and has wet and it's wet and it has it supports wildlife very well. And the other side is usually a desert. Okay, and the mountains, by blocking paths of air masses, um, their altitude will determine exactly what's on the other side of that mountain range. Okay. And we live in the biosphere. That's something we don't really have to worry too much about. Okay, types of climates. We have the temperate climate, not as hot as the subtropical climate and milder than the polar climate. It is usually defined by what it is not. Tropical climate remain high all year long and shows an annual wide change in precipitations in wet and dry seasons. Most tropical climates are known for their high temperatures year round and for their large amount of year round rain, like the rainforest. A dry tropical climate, okay, it's like a desert in the tropics, and you can really think about northern Africa. It is in the tropic zone, the latitudes of the tropics. However, mountains surround it, and that whole area is really dry, but it's still got that tropical climate. It's just a drier climate. Polar, North Pole, South Pole, very cold. Okay, there's more zones than that, but we're just going to deal with the main ones. Okay, now let's move over to weather. Mr. Timmons was a meteorologist for 4 years and 6 months of his life. I enjoyed it. It was the best job. Well, no, teaching you guys is better than that, but still, it was the second best job. How's that? Let me be quiet. Second best job is filmmaking. That's the third best job. Oh, whatever. Anyway, being a meteorologist was kind of cool. Okay, but we had to look at is we always had to measure the wind, we had to measure the air pressure, we had to measure the temperature, and we had to measure the humidity. The reason why we had to do that is because we track it. Each hour we had to do an observation, or each time that the weather changes, we have to do an observation to record what the weather is at that given time, because that's what weather is. Current conditions is happening now. Okay. Now all of these are weather words. Now, most of the time, most of the time, they also describe climates too. Okay. Where have you traveled to? What conditions did you expect? Now, I can tell you pretty much everywhere I've been. I've been to, I think, Honduras or Guatemala here somewhere. I think it's Guatemala is right here. It's mountains and stuff. And I've been to Jamaica. I've been to Ixtapa. I live in Houston. I am from Cleveland, Ohio, which is right here where my arrow is. I've been to Vancouver, Canada. And then if we go over to the other side of the world, I've been over there too. We're not going to deal with that much. Okay. But what conditions did I expect? When I went to Guatemala, it was a mountain climate. It was in the tropics. It really was. But in the evenings, because it was so high up the mountains, it got kind of cool. So that climate was a little bit different than any other tropical climate I've ever had to deal with. Zuatenejo, Mexico, one of my favorite places in the world. And it has pretty much a tropical climate and it's pretty much warm all year. It's a good, excellent place for a vacation. Now, here in Houston, in the summer, I wear shorts. In the winter, I wear a jacket. Sometimes I wear a sweater. It can get cold. Here, it has all four seasons. So in the winter, I'm wearing a really, really heavy coat. In the summer, I'm wearing shorts and short sleeve shirts. And then in the time in between, I'm wearing a lot of rain jackets. And depending on the temperature, I would change my clothes. Um, I would change my clothes, but it's pretty mixed in the fall and the spring. But summer, is pretty warm, and winter is very cold where I'm from. Let's go forward. All right, weather is what you get. Okay, uh, it's what you get. It's what you can expect, and it is always going to be in the moment or the coming moments. You can predict the weather. Okay, what it's going to be like tomorrow. You can, if you get the proper information, like this weather map here. We're going to go in deep in a later lesson. That's going to be this week, but it's going to be a later lesson about these weather symbols on the map. We'll talk about those a little bit later, but this is weather. It is what is now. It is what will be tomorrow, and it is what will be a few days from now. And it's based on the movement of these air masses. We'll talk about that a little more later. Climate tells you what clothes to buy. Let's look at this. We got polar, temperate, Arctic, arid, tropical, Mediterranean, and mountains. I live there too as well, right there, Italy, in the Mediterranean Sea. All right. Now, if you go to the beach, you probably wear shorts and stuff. Yeah, you wear beach clothes, a bathing suit, yada, yada. And let's go here. I don't really like to use the word Eskimo because it sounds a little pejorative because that was a name that was given to them. I know that there's one tribe of indigenous people near the North Pole, and they're called the Inuits. And I believe that is an Inuit hunter. And he gets the dogs and he goes out and he hunts and he goes out into the wild and hunts. But look at what he's wearing. He's wearing furs. He's catching beavers and bears and all kinds of stuff, and he's using their fur to keep warm. Cool. And that's because he's in the Arctic climate, which is all the way up here. Here, all the way up here. Oh, where you see my mouth, that's considered an Arctic climate. You got to dress warm for that. Weather tells you what clothes to put to wear. Okay? Let's look at the weather conditions. We got all of these weather conditions, and let's see if we can match each one of them. Wow, what do you think this one is? Yeah, this looks like reindeer. So we do see that this one right here would match that one. So let's move it forward. Oh wow, bathing suit. Wow. Okay, so let's go here to this hot place. This hot place with the high thermometer and all that other good stuff. Then the next one, we go here. You see all this wind? They are wearing something called a windbreaker. Because I know that where I'm from, in the spring and the fall, the wind hits you. If it's cold enough, it'll cut right through you, and it is just so miserable to not have a windbreaker because when the wind hits you, it hits you. All right, let's move forward. And look at this guy here. He's all dressed all warm. He has all of his fur stuff, and he has the heavy. This is what's called a parka or a doggy parka. But this is stuff we wear in Ohio in the winter. On the northern part of America, we have to dress like this in the winter. We get all four seasons where I'm from. And 83 degrees. That's just talking about weather. All right, matching weather and climate terms and definition. Let's look at the forecast for tomorrow is partly cloudy. A cactus, that would be weather. And a cactus is one of the few plants that can live in a desert because it doesn't need much water. That would be a statement of climate. Okay. Just remember, weather is specific. It'll give you specific temperatures, it'll give you specific dates. It's in a very short period of time, and it'll give you specific measurements. Okay. Um, Climate is a little bit different. It gives you something a little bit different, and we'll talk about this. We're going to actually go through this exercise. This should be pretty much the end of it all. We're going to check it out. So